Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Carly Schaffner, Wheels Editor with Wheels Advisor, a trusted destination for car reviews, advice, news, and trends to discuss the exciting electric vehicle space, commonly known as EV. Carly, it's great to have you on Trade Talks. Welcome, and let's kick this in to high gear.
Great, thanks for having me.
And let's dive right in with the fun stuff first. I love your Twitter profile description. You say, follow my unusual and exciting, typically hazardous experiences and activities. Tell us about one of the coolest vehicles you have gotten to experience.
Of course, yes. There's a lot of opportunity with automotive to get out there and get wild. And I think probably the most memorable, and there is a picture of it on the Twitter handle, is the Toyota Hilux, which is essentially a Tacoma but sold overseas, so you can't find it in the US, that I took for a 5-hour trek through the Costa Rican jungle with kids and surfboards. So it was quite the adventure.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the GMC 2022 Hummer EV. That thing's an absolute beast. And the trend has been for drivers to move away from the real big SUVs, as they are gas guzzlers and they get expensive at the pump and aren't the best for the environment, which is why we don't see as many of them as we have in the past. So if the Hummer EV takes off, do you think we'll see more demand for the big trucks if it's a real option?
That's a great question. The Hummer, it's going to have a long rollout, and its starting price is quite north of even 100,000. So it starts around 115. It's got the range. It's got the big battery, so it has a 1,000 horsepower and 11,500 pound-feet of torque, which makes for great off-roading instant torque. But it's going to be very, very pricey. I think what we're going to see in terms of trucks, and emissions are getting better with the bigger, heavier vehicles, including SUVs, because that's a huge segment that's growing. But we're going to see more incremental electrification. So the Ford F-150, for example, is coming out. It's got an onboard hybrid generator. It's got more components that are going to get us the higher mileage. So it's going to be, for the regular consumer that's not in the market for a $100,000 vehicle, huge SUV, it's going to be more of an incremental rollout in that segment.
Hyundai Motor will have 10 electrified eco-friendly vehicles in production by the end of 2022, 7 of which will be that key SUV market. And I think this is exciting because it democratizes access to EV, because as you said, not everyone can afford a Hummer or a Tesla. And Hyundai's electronification plan has largely been focused on increasing efficiency and decreasing emissions. Why the shift to plug-ins?
So 2 of their biggest vehicles are SUVs, literally in size and popularity, the Tucson and the Santa Fe. Both are going to get a plug-in variant with the new model rollout. I think one thing that Hyundai has been focused on previously is emissions, making their miles last longer for consumers. However, now the focus for them is going to be more on performance. And when you add a battery to a gas engine, you get, like I said, with the Hummer, more power, more torque. So the driver feels like they get a better driving dynamic from it, and then at the same time, they're getting better mileage out of those vehicles. So Hyundai is doing a really good job. They 2 of the 10 are going to be fully electric. They're 2 Ioniq models. That's a sub-brand that they started of all electrics. One is the 5 and one is the 6, crossover and sedan. So we'll see them push into different areas of electrification.
And to wrap up here, we've covered American and Asian automakers. So let's turn to Europe. Volkswagen is looking to not compete with the luxury brands like Audi and BMW, but rather the competitive crossover market. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty aggressive showdown in this category.
Yes, and this category is always fierce. I mean, this is where the Toyota RAV4 lives, and that's been for over 5 years the #1 selling vehicle that is not a pickup truck. They surpassed sales of 400,000 about 5 years ago and have been growing ever since. So that's the vehicle to beat. We also have in that category the Honda CR-V and the Nissan Rogue. Those are the trio that sit at the top there. Volkswagen has always been kind of gunning at the volume players and really trying to widen appeal. I mean, obviously it's a global automaker, They are going to be launching the ID4 shortly. And what that is, and they have a whole line of electric vehicles coming out, but this is going to be the first one we're really going to get to see. And I've driven it, and it is great. Its styling is on par with, you know, the rest of its brands, so it doesn't look like an EV. It goes 250 miles on a single charge. It's under 40K, which makes it affordable. So what they're doing is really going after their gas rivals, and they're want to demonstrate to consumers that though there are behavioral changes associated with switching from gas to electric, like the longer charging times, it's getting better, it's getting more affordable, and top off times are getting shorter. So there's less time spent recharging, less range anxiety. So that's going to be a fun showdown to watch.
All right, Carly, great speaking with you. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.